Oh, so we're recording now?
Yeah.
It doesn't have a little light there, like yours does.
Well, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's on.
But yeah, basically all our teachers at school always tell us that we need to sit down with our grandparents and talk to them about this kind of stuff. Just because that's learning about it in the history books is a lot different than hearing the stories about it. So that's why I decided that I need to sit down with both grandparents and just talk about it and hear whatever
I went in a service in 1941, and
How old were you?
I was 23, I think. 21 or 21 maybe. 21.
Yeah. And you were in the, I think my dad was the Air Force?
Huh?
Was it the Air Force? What division were you in?
Yeah, I went to into the Air Force, and I went to Florida, and that's where I went to mechanic school.
Yeah.
And I was there for about 4 or 5 months, and they put me on a train and sent me to Los Angeles. And we stayed in those big hotels down in Santa Monica.
Yeah.
And we went to school at night to Boeing and all those big companies that were making airplanes.
Yeah.
And we'd go to school in the buses from the hotel to the factories and go 2 shifts. They had a day shift and a night shift. And we stayed there for about, I guess, 4 months. And then they started to send the guys to different squadrons where they had the airplanes. And I got sent to Colorado, and that's where I was for quite a while because there wasn't anything in Colorado.
Yeah.
They didn't even have an airfield there. And so I stayed there until they built the airfield, but I went to Denver instead of staying there all the time. And we went to the airport there in Denver, and that's where the home of the Air Force photo squadrons were.
Yeah.
And so we got some of our airplanes, and we started to take care of them while the pilots were starting to learn the area.
So fly and stuff?
Yeah. And then I got back to Colorado, Colorado's town, and they sent me to China.
My goodness.
We went on a boat, the Mauritania. It was one of the biggest British ships, and we got chased from New York to Rio, and we stayed there for a few days, and we went on from there and got into the Indian Ocean and up the Indian Ocean and into India. We got to Bombay, and we took a train, and it was the wartime, and this train had all the lights on and everything. and this going across India.
Oh my goodness. It just like went like all the way across.
Yeah, we went from Bombay to Calcutta,
Oh wow.
and then we stayed at Calcutta for a few days, and they took us up to an airfield that was used by the British, and they had revetments for small airplanes, and we didn't have ours yet, but it wouldn't fit in those revetments and that. So the airplane that we had was the P-38s, and they were totally balanced on the ground, and monkeys would come down out of the trees and jump on the boom, and its tail would go down, and the nose would come off the ground.
Yeah.
And we had a station guards there at night, and one of my guys was with me there. He had his gun, and he heard a noise, and he shot at it, and he killed a mountain lion.
Oh my gosh.
And so they didn't do anything about it, except they let him keep it, and he kept it, and the guy did whatever you have to do to keep him from deteriorating.
Yeah, stuff on probably.
And then he sent him home, and it cost him about a month and a half's pay to send him home.
So how long did it take you to go from New York to all the way to there? How long was that?
I was on that boat for 59 days.
Jeez.
How long were you on the train?
About 6 or 7 days.
Wow.
And then at this, and you were at a base in India. What did they do there exactly with these planes?
In India, they were getting us ready to go over to China.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
You had to go up the valley out of Calcutta and then fly over the hump to Kunming and land in China, in Kunming. And they have to take all the gas and all the people over the hump to get them there.
Yeah.
And they had C-46s, 2-engine planes with blowers on them, and they could go over but the DC-3s couldn't get high enough
To go over.
They had if they went with a DC-3, they had to fly in between the mountains to get it there. And the C-46 would take the people and the gas and everything and take it over there. And they had squadrons.
So what mountains were those called? Do you remember? The mountains you had to go over? The ones you're talking about flying over? Was that like the Himalayas?
Yeah.
So those are pretty high. Those
Yeah,
are the highest mountains in the world, right?
They are, yeah. It's the highest mountain range. So.
And you have to go that high to get from India into China.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so.
And then I went to Kunming, and they divided our squadron into 5 parts. And I was made one line chief for one flight, and several of my friends were chosen for other things. mostly because the guys that I was with were sent to that school.
To the mechanic school.
Yeah, and so they knew the airplanes real well, and we had representatives that went with us from like Lockheed, who made the airplane, and they would come and help us out to fix anything that went wrong. But the only thing we had to do with the biggest thing was change engines, and they had turbos on them so they could go higher altitudes, and they'd burn the turbos out because they had wheels that spin on them
Yeah.
to increase the pressure of the air, and so that was one of the main things that we did, and we had to keep all four of them of my flight. They had crew chief, an assistant crew chief, and a propeller man,
Yeah.
and then a couple of flunky guys, and that was what was in each squadron. And so the one guy that was with me the longest time was a fellow by the name of McDaniels. And the reason they kept me with him was because he walked in his sleep and then have air raid, and he'd get up and walk, and if nobody went with him, he wouldn't know where he was and wouldn't get back. So he used to sleep next to me then, and when we'd have an air raid or anything, we'd get up, I'd go with him, and so I could make sure he got back.
So where was your base in China?
Where was it?
Yeah, where in China was it? What did you say the base was that you worked at?
Well, that was in Hancheng, and that's up on the Yangtze River above Chiang Mai. And we were there for about 3 months or so.
So the planes that you were working on were flying missions. Where were they flying missions to?
Into regular China.
Had the Japanese invaded part of China then?
Yeah, and a lot of times they'd be on one side of the river and we'd be on the other side. And they had the way they communicated was they had radio guys all along where the airplanes went, and they'd say noise of many, and that meant that there was many airplanes coming, and we'd get all ready for an attack, and we'd get our airplane in the air, and all the fighters. We had a fighter escort every base, and they'd get them planes all in the air if we had gas. Sometimes we didn't have any gas at all, and they had finally they started bringing the B-29s in, and we hated them because every time they went out, they usually came back and landed at our air base, and we'd get raided until they got them out of there, and we'd have to put engines and that on the B-29 to get them out of there so we could get a night's sleep. Because the Japanese would just keep coming and coming until they got them B-29s, and that was the worst thing that happened to us was the B-29s.
Were the Japanese bringing fighters, or were they bombers?
They had both fighters and bombers, and they flew them that way. They'd send the bombers, and then they'd send the fighters with them.
So wait, were they coming? The Japanese coming over to like, what, bomb the base and stuff?
Yeah, they try to get us, break up our airplanes and get rid of us guys that are on the ground. And so that went on until finally they sent me to can't think of the name of the country right north of China, but they sent us up there.
Not Tibet, right?
Huh?
Was it Tibet or?
No,
Oh, yeah, Russia's up next to China. I don't know.
it's just this was just a little wee,
Mongolia or something like that. Or?
yeah,
Probably.
and they sent us up there to keep us
Away from the Japanese.
away from the Japanese, and also give us a rest because they were finally getting a lot more gas in, and the B-29s were doing almost all the flying, and they started taking their own pictures. But the only time that we'd send the squadron, me and a plane, to take pictures for the B-29 was big when it was real high, and the B-29s couldn't get that high, and our airplane would go over. There was just one guy in our airplane, and he had nothing but cameras. So if anybody shot at him, he just ran, and that's the way it was.
So were you in China when the Japanese surrendered, or where were you at the end of the war? Were you there at the end of the war?
I was in Shanghai, and we were looking at the base to see if we could bring our airplanes in there, but we couldn't because the Zeros from China or from Japan were so much lighter, they'd take off a lot sooner than our airplanes, and we couldn't use our airplanes there because
The runway wasn't long enough.
yeah,
Hmm.
and it was all the runways were all built out of trash and that, you know, and it's still that way today as far as I know, along like those bases where there's a lot of traffic, they build them with trash, and they.
So you were actually in China when they dropped the atomic bombs in Japan?
No,
No.
I was home before they dropped it.
Oh yeah.
Oh, really?
Because that's when they so you were home before they actually surrendered then. Now,
Yeah.
how did you get home then? Did you go?
On was a fishing boat. They brought about 300 of us home.
So all the way from China to California, or did you go back?
Well, we came into Washington,
So what, did you cut through like the Panama Canal and stuff to get to Washington?
Well, state of Washington, he's
State
saying.
Oh, state of Washington. I see. I was from Washington, D.C.
Yeah, we came into Washington, and we went to Fort Lewis in Washington.
So how did you get around to Japan and all that stuff that was going on in the Pacific Ocean? They just went through to Hawaii and all that stuff, and this fishing boat that you were on?
When we come home, they had that typhoon. I don't know if you remember, there was a typhoon, and that fishing boat, we almost washed over. It was so rough. And then when we got to Washington, they let us all off, and they didn't have any transportation for us because it was all tied up, hauling stuff to the front. So they put us in Navy boats and brought us down the coast to San Francisco, and that's where I got out, and that's where I married your mother, was in San Bernardino. She was there waiting on me. She had gotten a house, and her and Tolosa were living there because she had Tolosa with her. And so we got married there in
40 something, wasn't it, probably?
Yeah, I think it was 1946.
So after the war. Yeah.
So, so you were in the United States when they actually dropped the atomic bombs
On Hiroshima
Yeah.
and Nagasaki.
but you were still in the military then, right, or no?
No, I got released before I got married.
Oh, really? So how many years were you totally in the service then?
5.5.
Okay.
And so, like, when you were working at the bases and stuff, like, because did you go into the mechanic school and stuff, or no? What exactly were you doing?
Yeah, we all lived together.
Yeah.
We had mechanics that worked on the cameras.
Mm-hmm.
They lived with us, and the people that developed the film, they lived with us. And we had quite a little settlement, you know.
Yeah.
And there was as many people that in that part of it as there was. Well, I only had about 20 people that worked for me because the rest of them were technicians that worked on the cameras, and technicians that developed the film, and we had guys that put the cameras
Were
on
those,
the airplane.
will every airplane have a camera in it, or just
Some
the
of them had
bombers?
5 in it.
Yeah, and they would
The
take
bombers or the
pictures.
fighters, or all of them had cameras?
They're all fighters.
Because
Okay.
wouldn't they use those cameras to, like, if you flew over the
They had
enemy lands,
cameras
to
that
take
had
pictures?
a focus lens about that long, and it was in the nose of the airplane. And then they had cameras that took pictures out the side.
So that they use those for intelligence to
Yeah, to
figure
like
out.
figure
yeah.
out stuff, wouldn't they?
See, now they use drones to do that.
Yeah,
They do. They use
Yeah, I
drones.
know. They don't use people. They send out there.
they would they send one fella from South Carolina named Sordelet. He was a mail carrier in real life, and they sent him to over to Japan,
So he was a flyer and they sent him out. What they sent him to Japan to do?
yeah,
To go take pictures.
so, when he got back, he'd flown the airplane so lean that had these molded harnesses on the spark plug wires, and they had all melted, and we couldn't get the spark plugs out of the engine. They were frozen in there, and so we just scrapped those engines because we couldn't
Fix them.
fix them.
Wow. Are you done for now, Natalie?
No, I mean,
You got some more questions?
like, so you kind of worked, like, helping them, like, move the engines out and stuff. Like, what exactly did you do? Like, what was your role?
Well, I worked for the engineering officer,
Mm-hmm.
and he'd tell me what missions we had and what airplanes they wanted to use,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd get with the crew chiefs, and we'd maybe put extra fuel tanks on the airplane, or extra cameras and stuff, and we'd have to get that all done before that we could fly the mission,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to figure that we had to get so much gas because of where they were going.
Yeah.
And all they did was get in the air, and they'd throttle it back until it just barely was flying. And if they got chased or anything, they'd drop all these gas tanks that we had under the wings,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'd start to fly like they were combat, but they didn't stay there because they didn't have any guns. The only gun they had was the pilot would have one in his
Holster, huh?
Yeah.
holster. Was the only gun
For
he
those
had.
surveillance planes, huh?
And so, like, what kind of missions were they doing? Do you remember? any?
Sounds like photographs.
Photographs mainly?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all we did.
Surveillance.
Photograph. But we usually had fighter squadrons around us
Yeah.
to protect the airplanes.
Because the Japanese weren't too happy you'd come over there to take photos of
No,
them.
so it was.
So
One
what was the name of the group you were in again? The
21st Photo Squadron.
yeah.
And this fellow that was with me over there a long time was named Price. He just died about, this last year. But we'd been together, calling back and forth to each other ever since we've been in the Army. And he was president of a bank in Remington, Colorado. Not Colorado, but can't think of the name of the state. It's below Chicago, and
What, Indiana or below Chicago?
Geez, even I'm blanking out. And I should know
There's
this.
Ohio. There's Ohio. There's
Ohio's right next to Indiana. Indiana's next to Illinois. It'd be below Illinois. What's below Illinois? Missouri? No.
Well, Missouri's the side.
Arkansas?
No. You got Kentucky. You got
Tennessee? Or
it's right below Chicago.
Dang it.
Well, I thought. Well, you got Michigan, and you got
your mother and I visited him and his family when we went back east. We came back and stopped in that town and visited them, and then we came on home.
I always thought it was Indiana was there, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, Indiana's next to Illinois.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
I thought it was Indiana was south of Illinois.
I think it is Indiana. And there's a college there in the town called Remington College.
Could be, yeah.
And